So welcome, our brilliant colleague Bayan. We so appreciate your visionary leadership and your commitment to community development. And as always at SETC, we begin all things by giving thanks to our creator, to our sustainer. We give thanks to all our ancestors, all those who toiled without compassion or compensation. We give thanks to all our elders and community stalwarts whose shoulders we stand on as we build, share, and learn together for our collective liberation and sovereignty. So Bayan, can you please introduce yourself to our listeners and viewers and share a bit about your remarkable work?
Thank you so much, Victor. Thanks for inviting me to chat with you today. So my name is Bayan Khatib. I'm currently the Impact Director of the Refugee Portfolio at the Northpine Foundation. Before that, I was the co-founder and executive director of the Syrian Canadian Foundation. And my family was actually born, from Syria. I was born in Syria and came here when I was 7 years old. So my family came to Canada through private sponsorship many, many years ago. And I still to this day remember the kindness that many families showed our family. And it's that sort of inspires me to carry forward that kindness and work with refugees and newcomers.
That's absolutely incredible. Thank you so much for that context and the background and the way you're paying it forward. Yeah, it's incredible. I'll give thanks. So my next question is, what's inspiring you right now? What has you curious, or what's keeping you up at night?
I have different answers for each part of those questions, but definitely what inspires me is the incredible leaders that I get to work with in my job at Northpine. So Northpine gives out large amounts of money, but we do it with a small number of organizations. And so I get to, in my job, identify amazing leaders across the country who are creating incredible outcomes for refugees and work closely with them and support their work. And that is a huge blessing and something that inspires me every day. What keeps me up at night, I would say, funny enough, is the same thing that kept me up at night when I was the executive director at a small charity. I didn't think that this would be my problem anymore, working for a foundation and being a funder, but it still is. And that's the issue of sustainability. Because when we at Northpine identify excellent models that are creating outcomes for our communities, we want to make sure that the work is sustained and that the outcomes carry forward after Northpine exits that relationship. And so sustainability is always on my mind. And I know that there is no perfect solution for it. And so it's a challenge that we work very closely with our partner organizations, or what we call our investees. We work very closely to come up with a sustainability hypothesis, but it's very difficult because Northpine often does large funding, and so oftentimes the funder that can carry forward work that we've already scaled out is usually government. Like, they're the ones who are able to do bigger funding than we can. And the problem with the government is we have very little say over what happens in government. And so one of our goals at Northpine, and for me personally, is to actually establish better relationship with various levels of government in order for us to better inform each other's work, and hopefully be able to tell them about some of the amazing things that we identify in our work at Northpine.
That's incredible, and I couldn't agree more. Connecting the public and philanthropic sector for collaboration is imperative in terms of sustainable impact. A lot of times we talk about harmonizing the supply and demand side of capital, but even inside the supply side of capital, there's some gaps that need to be filled, especially around matching dollars and sustainable efforts. So once again, I applaud your leadership and that systems level thinking and systems level investing that you and your colleagues at Northpine are doing. It's truly remarkable. So my next question is, what are some of the challenges and barriers you and your colleagues are facing? And what are some of the approaches you're taking to overcome some of these challenges and barriers?
So challenges and barriers, I would say, is that I'm able to work with a very small number of organizations. And so I meet really amazing people that we're not able to work with. And so another goal of mine is to bring together, different funders, different foundations into a circle, into a group, so that we understand each other's work and what everybody else is funding, and be able to refer people to each other. It's really hard when you see people doing good work, but it doesn't fit your areas of priority, or like the amount of funding that you give, or whatever it might be. So that's definitely a challenge and something we're working on. Um, Other than that, I would say the like, the challenge is I share the same challenges that the organizations that we fund share, which is the the very the difficult situations that refugees find themselves in Canada. And so, you know, the big barriers right now are like housing, employment, language training, and we we see ourselves as a welcoming society in Canada, but there's actually a lot to still work on that front. And I think that we often put the burden on refugees to integrate, and we don't see that we need to be a part of that. So there's a lot to be done there, like working with employers to create refugee-friendly hiring practices, for example, is a big thing on our mind.
Incredible. Thank you. I appreciate that. So do you have a set of key priorities in your work right now you'd like to amplify to our listeners and our viewers?
Yes, definitely. So right now, the key priorities are actually what we have identified as the biggest obstacles for refugee integration, which are housing, employment, and language training. Housing, of course, is a pain point for everybody in this country, but imagine being a refugee who comes here, who doesn't have credit history, who doesn't have a letter from an employer, or pay stubs, and doesn't have a referral letter from previous landlord. It's becoming nearly impossible to rent a house or a home for refugees. So that's a huge pain point. It's a problem to be solved. There's a few good people working on it, so we'll see what we can do. And then the other one, of course, employment. It's just, you wouldn't believe how many refugees I know who are driving like Uber right now to just make ends meet, right? Like, and highly educated, highly competent, ready to work, but constantly discriminated against because they don't have Canadian experience, because their education is from another country. So this is another huge problem that we need to work on. And again, this one is not like, oh, refugees need to work harder to get jobs. No, this one is employers need to change how they think and their hiring practices.
I couldn't agree more. There's so many colleagues working on this pervasive and almost intergenerational challenge that has impacted so many folks. There's many folks like in my family that came to Canada through the domestic schemes and had to, like, there was women that had to lie about being married to come to Canada. There's been so many challenges around, but anyway, around immigration, refugee,
Well,
newcomer,
and we
racialized
haven't
migrants.
we haven't come anyways at all, which is so sad. Because my parents came here, my dad was an engineer, my mom was a doctor, and neither of them got to practice here, right? So it's very sad, and it remains to be the same. I have several other family members who've come recently and who are also doctors and healthcare professionals, and they can't practice here. It's just we haven't I can't it's so hard to believe that like Canada has not moved forward on this front in decades.
I agree. And that's why, once again, amplifying the work of Northpine, of Windmill Microlending, of Radius, of I can name so many groups trying to attack this problem, and really building an ecosystem full of solutions is so important. So once again, I just applaud the leadership of you and your entire remarkable team. So my second last question is, what is your ultimate goal? And what does success look like and feel like to you and your colleague?
Um, so for me, like within my portfolio working with refugees, success is basically seeing refugees thrive here in Canada, seeing a truly welcoming society that is inclusive to refugees, and basically seeing landlords giving you know giving rent to refugees without discriminating against them, seeing employers hiring refugees without discriminating against them, um, people working in their fields, right? Seeing refugees working in their fields, and also changing the narrative on how refugees are viewed in this country. So that's something that really hurts as well. there's so many Canadians that still view refugees as, you know, they're here to suck our resources, they're here to take our jobs, and they don't see them as a value add, which they actually are. Refugees are some of the most incredible, resilient, resourceful, strong people you'll ever meet, because if you just take a minute and learn about the refugee journey and what they have to go through to get to this country, it's just absolutely incredible, and you would realize what a value add they would be to whatever space you put them in.
I couldn't agree more. The tenacity, resilience, and self-determination is unparalleled, especially when it comes to navigating certain countries. So with that being said, do you have any closing thoughts or calls to action for our listeners and our viewers?
So I would love for everybody to be a part of the solution, everybody to think about themselves as part of the solution. So how are you creating a more welcoming society for refugees? How are you, when you know, if you're a hiring manager or if you're a leader at an organization, are you truly giving people opportunities? Are you truly not discriminating? And it's really hard because we think we're not racist, we think we don't discriminate, but then when we truly like question ourselves and look closely at our actions, we sometimes get surprised. And so I would ask people to just, you know, turn inward, look at your actions, think about what you are doing when it comes to these things. If you're renting out a space, are you discriminating because someone's a newcomer and isn't able to provide you with all the documents that you want? That's really the important takeaway for me for people, is like to just take responsibility for your part in creating a welcoming and environment for newcomers where they can thrive and
I
fulfill
love
their potential, which is actually good for, not for just them, it's actually good for Canada, it's good for all of us.
Absolutely. It makes Canada strong. So once again, I couldn't agree more. I applaud your authenticity, your leadership, and all the work that you're doing on behalf of so many, man. And I just really appreciate you. And as always at Setsi, we close this interview, this conversation, the way it began, by giving thanks to our creator, to our sustainer. We give thanks to all our ancestors, all those who toiled, without compassion or compensation. We give thanks to all our elders and community stalwarts whose shoulders we stand on as we build, share, and learn together for our collective liberation. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Victor.